Hey, everybody, welcome back to Conversations in Pop Culture, and we are back in the saddle once again for another season. And this episode is brought to you by my friend Preston Poulter, who has a book coming out called Palace of the Golden Princess, which offers a fun, sexy romp through a fantasy RPG setting run by women. Issue 3 launches soon on Kickstarter, and right now he is offering a free PDF of Issue 1, so you can try it before you buy it if you sign up for his email at pocketjackcomics.com. And so you could obviously just shoot your email in there. You'll get a PDF of issue 1. And if you like the story, you could back the campaign and you can try before you buy. But enough about that, because I have with me comic creator, at least for the 5th time, I think. I think it's been 5 times, Ed Davis.
So.
Yeah, no.
Wow,
so
thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, no, I'm happy. I'm happy you come back. You know, I like having repeat guests. And obviously, I think we spoke about Immortal Era when it first came out. I think I missed maybe an issue or 2 of it in an interview for whatever reason, but you're up to issue 8 at this point. So that's kind of where you're at. I think you're fully funded. But before we dive into issue 8, what's going on with issue 8 and everything, kind of let's catch everybody up on the basic story for those who are hearing about it for the first time without revealing too much.
All right, so I'll give you the basic elevator pitch, like as if you were coming to my table, keeping it spoiler free. Anytime someone gets me deep in conversation, the spoilers start just rolling off my tongue, and I'm like, oh shit, that's issue 12 stuff I just gave you, because my head is in all these different spaces. But the premise of the story is it's a post-apocalyptic world 200 years in the future where everyone has mysteriously become immortal. But with their immortality, they don't gain powers or abilities. They can still age, still get sick. One of the main characters of my story is a decapitated head, and he's just forced to live on. So it centers on a group of heroes. They're out on a quest to find relics because for them, their ultimate goal is to restore the natural life cycle and to save humanity by killing them. But of course, in any story, there's people who want to bring the natural cycle back into the world, and there's people who are fighting against them. And as we're moving forward in the issue, we're seeing returns of characters that were kind of shown briefly in earlier issues, and we're seeing who kind of the big bad of the whole series is overall. So we're in issue 8, which is, I guess, 2 into the new story arc that it started with issue 7. And this one will be another 6-issue arc.
Yeah, let's dive a little bit into this, because you tackle a lot of stuff in Immortal Era. And one of the things that I find interesting is that you obviously tackle differences of classes, because obviously there's the uppers, I guess, for lack of a better word here, who live up in high society. They don't seem to have a real issue. They can easily, have children, and they're rich or they're wealthy or they have power to do it. And then there's people who've been relegated down to the slums. There's people who are really, used. And there are people who are now in the sewers and in sewer upon sewer upon sewer cities underground. And so you tackled that. And then you also deal with a bunch of other stuff of, well, what do you do with an aging population that is dying? And there's something going on. And issue 8 deals with that a little bit slightly. And so what is this like? Because it's such a fascinating world that you've created at this point. And now we're starting to see how the pieces are starting to come together on both, I guess, the background pieces and the front and center pieces.
Yeah, the one thing that I really wanted to do was just kind of reveal new facts about this universe every time an issue comes out. We start off with just the basics. We have this class system, like you were saying, almost like the border control that we have going on in a lot of the world. If one of the people from those underground sewer systems tries to go up, they're going to get taken down immediately. So you have everyone who's not legal forced to live down there, which makes it this ugly free-for-all. It's gangs, it's cannibalism. It's if you have a resource, someone's going to come and try to take it from you. So we start kind of with a look at this world, and we get little glimpses of what's going on these surface cities. And they, the village has a name, but the city to them, okay, that's just the surface. And for most of the people in the underground, that's just a dream. You'll never actually step to get to the surface. So they're out there trying to gather everything they need to bring the life cycle back into the world, but they're constantly being battled. Every step of the way, there's someone trying to stop them from that. So what will end up happening as we finish this second story arc, and even actually in issue 9, we're going to expand the universe. We're going to see more than just the city and the underground. We're going to see what's going on beyond those places. So we'll have our first glimpse into what does a prison look like in a world without death, without resources to build just your standard prison. What does it look like? Issue 9 will finally reveal that. Issue 9 will also reveal that there is a way to bring death into the world. It's very rare, and we don't know exactly how right now, but we see that, okay, there is a way to bring true death into the world. But because it'd be so desirable, it's highly guarded, and most people wouldn't be able to get anywhere near where they could do that. And here I go again, spoilers, but issue 9 really expands the universe, because what I kind of have, once we split the characters out of the underground with some up above and some in the underground, I'm kind of juggling 2 or 3 different storylines. And we're just going to, when issue 9 comes around, it takes a pause from that storyline, and we'll see what's going to happen in, in this universe. What are some of the mythologies that we haven't learned yet? Issue 8 explores those in small ways as well, where we get more backstory of Rob Rockford, who was one of the people who was flashed back in issue 2. We get deeper into his backstory, which also reveals more lore from the series.
Yeah, let's kind of get into this a little bit, because obviously, not to spoil anything too big, but they kind of fail their first part of their mission in
Yes.
the first 6 issues, where it doesn't go as planned, to put it nicely,
Yeah.
against getting a piece of death. I don't think that's a major spoiler. It's a Shakespeare play, right?
Yeah.
Either the good guys win the first act, the bad guys win the second, and then it's all hell breaks loose in the third.
Mm-hmm.
But I digress. But now they have to deal with that in issue 7. They have to
Yeah.
deal with that in issue 8, and now they kind of have to say, "Cool, how do we deal with these witches, this magic, this enemy, and the fact that a lot of factions are now being introduced in
Yeah.
this issue, and who is really in control? Is it really the elites? Is it the doctor? Is it other people who are in control? Is it the world leaders? Is it a compromise? Are they vying for power between each other, and now this group's involved?" And so it's very interesting what's going on in this world, because I don't even know how this all plays out. And there's a lot of politics that are in play, I feel.
Yeah, and that's something that kind of opens up more in this second story arc. We see, like I said, there's the different factions. We have in the first story arc, it closed with a very hollow victory, where perhaps they won, but the casualties were huge. And especially in this world without death, you just have a huge amount of your village just suffering endlessly. So you have that. You have the half the people, the other half of the heroes who are out on their quest to seek out that piece of death. They may have won, but their victory was also a very hollow victory. So in the end, maybe the good guys won, but it wasn't a great victory, which leaves the villains in this series a chance to recoup and come back even stronger. And that's really where our third arc is going to lead us. Is we're going to see both sides, the witches and the gang who came down to attack, kind of coming together.
Yeah, and let's even get into this, because obviously, I mean, issue 8 is the recoup of this. They're dealing with the consequences of everything that's happened. And obviously, there's a lot of stuff of choices being involved, as well as, do these people want to continue? Do these heroes want to continue their quest? What reasons do they want to continue the quest? Versus an order or a mandate. Now it's becoming a choice in a lot of ways, which I thought was very interesting in this issue. And again, I'm trying to not spoil as much as humanly possible, But now there's a real question, is that your enemy knows who you are. And
Yes.
that's what's so interesting now with this book, is that both the elites in the world, the powerful people in the world, know who these 4 or 5 or 6 heroes are, and the witches and magic users know who they are.
Yeah.
And now they're kind of too far in to get out in
Yeah.
certain ways. And what is that like? Because now it's this whole concept and whole philosophy of they are true believers, is a good way to put it at this
Yeah.
point. So what is that like? Because that changes the characters, and that's what's so interesting. Now
It
is
does,
that
and it kind of rewrites your reluctant protagonist who's thinking this is just a pie in the sky dream, when she can realize, wait, this is real. There is a way to actually save the world, but it's not going to be easy because the people who want to keep the status quo are far more powerful. She may be strong with sword play, she's great at firing a weapon, but that's nothing when you're dealing with someone who's magic. And that's what she learned, because she says it, I just had my ass handed to me by this witch and I'm not ready to go back up. But she knows that she needs to, because there is an actual chance to bring death back in the world. She knows now what needs to be done. And as reluctant as our hero is, she knows that it's what's best for everyone in this world to keep things the way they are. She's letting these powerful forces stay in power, and that's, that's even worse than what she has to deal with when she goes up.
yeah, and this is where this gets so interesting, right? I mean, and this is why I like your book, is that you're flipping death in a lot of ways on its side. And this is the thing, is that, and I've said this about other people's books, is everybody wants to write a book about decaying and death, and they want to write the next Walking Dead, is the basis of what a lot of people want to write. And I think that they forget that you gotta flip it, you gotta twist it up a little bit, and that's where you're going now, is that you took a concept where you can't die, and then now they want to find death and restore it. And then now they're learning that it's very complicated and that it's actually obtainable. And
Yeah.
that's a whole different path, where you're not fixing death, you're trying to restore death. And it's a big
Yes.
difference. And it's, I don't want to say it's mercy, for lack of a better word, but you're almost trying to provide, I guess, relief in the world to some degree.
Yeah.
And so what is this like? Because it's a fascinating thing. And that's what I like about your book more so than other people's books, because I feel like it's not repeating The Walking Dead or zombies or immortality, where we're actually unimmortalizing, for lack of a better
Yeah.
word.
Doing the kind of reverse hero's quest. You don't want everyone to live. You're not trying to save their lives. You're trying, as you said, to give them mercy, because the people that are young, they're perfectly content to have their immortality, because they don't know what it's going to feel like in 200 years. When you've continued to age, you can barely move. And of course, in this universe, the government is right there to exploit these people who have lost their mobility, and they find a way to use them as resources in this world. And this is the kind of thing where they realize it's what the world needs, even though one of the characters who's out there trying to make this happen is a decapitated head. So if this succeeds, he's going to die instantly. He's not going to survive this quest, because a decapitated head has no place in a universe that has a proper life cycle. So he's leading this quest knowing that this quest leads to his death instantly. So it's kind of battling for what's best, not for yourself, but for humanity at large.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating, and it's also very biblical, for lack of a better word. And I think that there's a lot of biblical symbolism in this book in so many ways and other things. And it's really just getting to the point where I mean, technically they're heroes, but they're not. That's also what's so fascinating. And I've read all 8 issues, and that's what I think is beyond interesting, is that technically speaking, I mean, these people are kind of the villains to some degree.
Yeah.
If you really want to bring back death when it has been granted and has been exterminated, I mean, most people would say that if you eliminated death in society, that would be a good thing.
Yeah.
But the problem is that people are free from death, but they're not free from harm. And
Yeah.
it's so fascinating in so many ways. And then obviously there's a bunch of other stuff that's going on too. Obviously Kimberly has an issue, and there are consequences for actions. And that's also what I like about your book too right now, is there are some serious consequences that happen in issue 7 and in issue 8. That none of these characters are free from consequences on what has happened. And in particular, one character does have a pretty significant consequence.
Yeah. And that's something I wanted to build on, is whatever you're doing isn't just every time, every issue story arc's going to end with, all right, hooray, victory. We've retrieved a piece of death, and now, everybody's happy and celebrating, do the Ewok dance and fade to black. It's like, no, every time you do this, it may seem a victory, but there's huge consequences that will end up affecting things all the way down at the end of the story, because everything about the story is already fully mapped out. So everything that happens in that first arc will end up coming full circle in the final arc, and things that you thought, okay, this was a heroic move, but you're going to pay for it. And as you said, in huge amounts of this society would think these are not heroes, these are the villains, and we're going to do anything in our power to make sure they don't succeed, beyond just the witches who have found a way to actually stop aging, so they get to live in immortality with frozen age. And that gets explained more in further issues as well. We get to see how are some of these people remaining ageless, and others, they are just haggardly beyond belief. So we get to see that. And the people, even the ones that would be growing, maybe you're 50 or 60, and you think, I got plenty of years, good years left. These people need to be stopped. So you have a world that's against them. So they're going to have to, things are going to get worse and worse as they move along in their quest.
Yeah, so let's actually dive into something you mentioned really interestingly, is that most comics, in my opinion, you write in 6 issues. And so you'll have, DC will do this with Batman. They'll have 6 issues. Typically, a conflict is resolved, or it's resolved in 12 issues. Mm-hmm. And then there you go. You got 144 pages. Maybe you got 288 or 280 pages to deal with the problem, and great. Yeah. Or maybe you have 6 that deal with a minor problem, but it's part of an event. And so that's just typically how a lot of DC comics are done. A lot of people in comics tend to write in 4 to 6 issue arcs. Mm-hmm. And most people want to wrap up an arc cleanly. Mm-hmm. And you didn't wrap it up cleanly. No offense. I'm going to say it politely. That doesn't mean it wasn't well written. That means that there's a lot of loose ends that were not tied up. And a lot of things went wrong at the end of issue 6. And even going into issue 7, you're like, what the hell just happened? And we kind of find out what sort of happened in issue 8 a little bit in issue 6. And so what is that like? Because that's kind of a risky move to some degree when you don't wrap up an arc nice and tight and you leave it open-ended. And obviously you were going to do issue 7 anyway, but nonetheless, it can leave people saying, like, with a bitter taste in their mouth, if that makes any sense. So what is that like? Because it's a little tricky, I think.
Yeah, and that was something I had to kind of grapple with, because it was originally being written as a novel, and novels don't need to tie up, nice and neat. If you're writing a full novel, okay, well, this would have been maybe the first third of the novel, and then we go on. And even if I were writing it as an expanded 2-book or 3-book series, you can end a book and be stuck on a cliffhanger, and you have to grab the next one. So when it was originally written as a novel, I never actually conceived that it would one day be a comic book, because I started writing this thing back in the 90s. My preconceived notion was that you don't write a comic book unless you're an artist. So me, who can't draw a straight stick man, I just thought this is going to be a novel. It might end up growing into a novel trilogy. And, what happens beyond that, who knows? But you can cliffhang someone with a novel, wrap up a few of the loose ends, but leave plenty of them out there when people know there's more to come. So when I was finishing the first arc in the comic book, I had to decide, am I going to tie something up neatly and, give kind of what the comic readers would expect? Or am I just going to go all in and say, no, this is being written the same way that you would read a novel? And I kind of got inspiration from reading Neil Gaiman, because the first arc of Sandman might have tied itself up somewhat neatly, but by the second one, there were more questions by the end of that arc than there were answers. And I like that each arc in this series brings more questions to the table. It's like we get a little bit of resolution, and the second story arc will bring a lot of change into the world, but it's not going to help. Like, okay, great. Now I know, you may know, okay, now I know how true death exists in this world again, but how are they going to get it from the people who are protecting it?
So let's even go further into that a little bit about writing it. And I think this is the other thing, and maybe it's because I ran a Kickstarter for this show. We don't need to talk about that. That doesn't count, guys, because that was very different than a comic, where I think sometimes people need to understand that, great, if you write something as a novel, when you bring it over to Kickstarter, if you're self-publishing a comic, it doesn't matter where you end. But when you're doing it on a Kickstarter, your customer is your bloodline in many ways to print. Either, maybe not the first one, because maybe you're out of pocket on the first one, but you're getting money for the second one, the third one, the fourth one, the sixth one, you're getting money for the seventh, or you're recouping some of your funds so you can break even, or you're maybe $500 in the hole, and that's your entertainment for the year. And so I think that's a very interesting thing that sometimes creators don't understand, is that while you want to write your creation and your baby, and people are coming to Kickstarter and indie for that, you do need to write to fund too. And it's a weird thing, and I don't know if I'm even qualified to speak about it, because I haven't ever done that, but that's what I kind of just think logically. I could be off base completely, and I'm the first person to admit it, but I think that's something that creators really struggle with, I would imagine, because how do you tie it up? Or because that's what's so interesting about your issue 6 in a lot of ways. And then really it's starting to get resolved in this issue that's out on Kickstarter right now.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, it's hard because what you hope, especially in my case, is that I've been crowdfunding this since issue 1, and that these readers, your core group of readers, which in general, they're enough to fund the book each time. Are my core group of readers going to continue on the journey? And you hope that you don't frustrate them, that you give them enough answers along the way that they're not thinking, all right, he's reached lost territory, he's spinning his wheels, and we're going nowhere. So I try to give them enough, but also create enough intrigue where they can't say, okay, I figured out everything, I know exactly where this book's going to go, I don't need to read it anymore because it's become easy and predictable. So you have to kind of have that fine line of giving enough. And you can see that new issues try to build on the previous ones, but not just, I mean, my first draft of this comic gave away so much in issue 1. It was just this whole 24 pages of backstory. Ari's journal just saying, this happened, this happened, this happened. And every good reveal of the universe was given away in 24 pages. And I thought, that's not the way to tell the story, because you want your readers to come back and wonder about things. And I gave it all away. So pretty much I threw that entire draft away. I think I kept maybe 6 pages of it. And from there, I rewrote it and thought, okay, this big reveal that I gave away on page 3 when I wrote the first draft, we're going to put that in issue 3. And this one we'll use in issue 5. And everyone has a particular issue that will give the big reveal until the final reveal when the story ends.
See, this is interesting because understanding structure is so important, and also understanding structure on what you're presenting in a lot of ways as well. It is so important. And, with entertainment, I want to be entertained, but I like being surprised. I'm in the middle of watching an anime called Spice and Wolf, and I know the character survived because there's a second season. So when
Okay.
a character looks like he's going to get killed, he's not. But I also want to say, cool, how is he going to get out of an economic debt that he brought in? And it's this, that, and the other, and 15 things. And I was pleasantly surprised how it all worked out in his favor.
Okay.
And I was thrilled. And I was like, I did not see that coming. I did not see that one coming. And so I was happy because I knew he was going to survive, but I didn't know how.
Yeah.
And I was complacent. And I was kept complacent and intrigued episode by episode by episode. And I think that's something that, because I've dropped out of comics and books after issue 2, I'm like, I get it. The character is a bitch. You don't need to give me 60 pages of a character being a bitch. 10 would have worked fine. It would have worked fine. We could have just had it. You could have just said, this character, I'm a bitch. And that in one panel. And that would have given me everything I needed. And then we could have got to the story. And I think sometimes writers just don't know how to do that. And so this is super interesting because you gotta, as you were stating, you gotta keep me occupied and complacent so I stay with your book. But you also have to keep me, I guess, a little bit on the edge. I don't know how, you have to placate me. That's the word.
Yeah. And that's something I had to learn to do when I started writing this as a comic series was big moment cliffhangers, because those are something I always liked in comics. Like, oh my gosh, like you said, the character is going to survive because you can't see, I'm not going to take out the main character in issue 4.
You're not killing.
How is she going to get out of this predicament? And it's one of those things that you have to do that, but that's where you have to. As a novel, it flowed in a different way. It wasn't just chapter cliffhangers, because a chapter cliffhanger in a novel, what's the point in that? Because they're going to turn to the next page. It's not, I need to get the next issue to continue. So a lot of the major beats were still there, but I handled them in a different way. So you have to handle them in a way that you've created that cliffhanger moment that makes people want to run back for more.
Did you also feel that a novel, for the most part, obviously, if you were to break this into a trilogy and a novel, there's going to be time between the first novel, the second novel, and the third novel. And so having a cliffhanger at the end of novel 1, it makes sense. But same thing with 2. But with comics, I don't know how often did you produce Immortal Era, monthly or yearly?
It's about every 3 months, a new issue.
So with every 3 months, that's sizable. That's 12 weeks in between. A lot happens in 12 weeks in life. I don't know what you were doing 12 weeks ago, but I was in a very different place 12 weeks ago. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't seem like it, but in a given year, I am in a very different place from the start of the year to the end of the year. As a person, a lot happens. I'm also 30, so my life is moving a little bit more stable. And if you have kids, forget about it. If you have children and they're young, every day is something new is happening. So my point is that in 12 weeks, and so with comics, you have to end on a cliffhanger, I feel, versus elsewhere, because if you don't, it's all tidied up. You got to need a reason to come back, because there's 3 months where I'm not paying attention to your book.
And it's out of people's minds.
You got to get me somehow connected, saying, did she jump off the cliff? She ended up in prison. What is going to happen in this prison to her? What does this look like? Oh my God, if she goes to prison in issue 9, what does a pretty girl in a prison that you can't die in, that other people there look like? And who's in this prison? Is it a political prison, or is it full of murderers, or is it full of something else? Or are all these people the nicest people in the world, and that's why they're there? Who knows? Or maybe
I hope that my hope is when the prison's revealed, it is the last thing anyone ever imagined. That's kind of my hope, because it's one of those things where you're saying all those, I'm like, oh boy, wait till you see.
I'm willing to bet it is a nice place out on the ocean.
What I write about is nice things, so of course it will be.
It's nice. I
it's going to be like one of those cushy, those ones that they send the hedge fund guys to, something like that. Golf course.
Get to play tennis all day.
Lagoons to play around in, tennis, Ari's going to get her backstroke all down, and it's going to be cushy gig.
I'm pretty sure it's a food processing plant and a prostitution ring. Because with attractive women, without a doubt, that'd be my guess. But you don't have to answer, because to me,
I've ventured into enough spoilers. I gotta leave something secret, and that issue 9 will be the quickest turnaround. So
no, but in this world,
that one will give us a lot of answers. So that's the good thing, is that should come out by the end of the year. So you'll get 2 issues before the year ends. So
my point about my prediction is that that is the most logical place for where you can't die, because clearly in this world there's a food problem. There's a food problem. That's not a secret at all. And in any world where you can't die, consequences don't matter. So naturally, deviant behavior is going to persist somehow.
It does, and you see that, and that's, like you said, that's not really a reveal, because we see that right in issue 1. We see, okay, resources are scarce, and now there's this roaming gang of cannibals, and they're out there searching for anything they can get to eat, and they don't care. They don't discriminate, because if you suffered from months of starvation that in a real world would have killed you, 3-4 times over, and you're still living with it, you don't care. Your morals are out the window. You're no longer thinking, oh, that's wrong to eat that person or whatever. They're thinking that's meat. And
no, they're thinking
to meat. I want that meat. That's the only thing I need in this world, and I will get it.
They're thinking, boy, Tom looks good today.
Yeah, that leg is delicious looking.
But I digress. That's a dark thought, but your book brings it out. I can't wait. I can't wait to get to like issue 24 and you just put it into a hardcover omnibus.
That's my ultimate goal, because I've done the first story arc. We did a soft cover and we did a hardcover.
We're going to talk about that.
And then the second story arc, once it finishes, I'm hoping that story arc's finished by next summer, that we can actually have all the way up to issue 12 out, do another hard and soft. So they're numbered. I already started numbering them 1. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, and 4, but I would love to do that beautiful omnibus that gives you all 24 issues in one fat volume.
Yeah, let's actually talk about even going into some more inside baseball with this. I don't want to ruin too much about your book. I have a pretty good idea where we're going. I mean, we get to go to prison. It'll be fun. No, it's not prison school, guys. Great show, fun show to watch. But no, it's not going to be a fun prison. This is not Orange is the New Black.
Well, this isn't that one. No happy cooks unless they're cooking you.
So many things I could say, but let's actually talk about inside baseball a little bit, because what you did, and you've seen it and I've seen it, I don't think we're revealing anything that's going to get you or me in trouble, is I've seen a lot of people struggle on Kickstarter with trade paperbacks. Yeah. I've seen a lot of people have a hard time lately collectively on Kickstarter. I've seen people kill it, though, just the same. And it raises the question with trade paperbacks is that, and you did it a little bit different because you did the trade paperback with issue 7.
Yeah, I put them together.
You weren't solely dependent on the trade paperback. No. And the reason why I think it's actually really smart is because there was an opportunity where if I have limited funds or I like my floppies and I'm like, why the hell do I need a trade paperback of this? Because some people are like that, where I want new material. I don't want to buy old material to put on my bookshelf. Unless it's nicely bound and omnibus is always good, things like that. So what is that like for you? Because it is tricky now, I feel. Because if I have the choice between new material and old material, unless it's like a special edition, or unless it's something that's been out of print, like Larry Welts did Cherry in an omnibus. Beautiful 32 issues, hardcover, omnibus. That to me makes sense because that's a bookshelf book. I don't know if that makes any sense, but like if I have the choice between new material and your book, issues 1 through 6, I mean it's a tough call sometimes.
Yeah, because the majority of the people, and when I ran that Kickstarter, it was actually when we talked the very first time, and I think at that point I had issue 3 out, and we were talking about eventually the trade. And you were saying, as a reader, you don't want to have to wait so people can get caught up. You want to continue your story. So when you said that, it made me think, yeah, there's the people, they've been reading this book all along. They don't want to sit and wait another 3 months because I put out the trade and now I have to do another Kickstarter to get them issue 7. So when I did that particular campaign, I had your voice in my head and I thought, you know what, my readers, they want their new book. They're not worried about the trade. They got their floppies. They're not looking to reinvest. Some of them did because they wanted to get the hardcover because maybe they want that on their bookshelf. But the majority of my sales for that particular campaign were people buying issue 7, keeping their collection moving. And that made me think, okay, this is what they wanted. They just wanted a new issue. And for those who want to catch up, it's a little cheaper way if you buy the soft cover than having to buy all those floppies and get yourself back and caught up. So it's an easier way to get people caught up from starting from the beginning, but it also didn't stop the journey that people were already on. Because when you said that, it made a lot of sense.
This is interesting because, and I'm going to probably take back some ground here on my statement, is that when you get to issue 12, I think trade paperbacks make sense at that point if somebody wants to jump in at issue 13. And so this is where it gets tricky, is that if you have a continuing series or you're doing 24 issues, you are going to need trade paperbacks at some point. And how do you finance it? And this is where it's such a headache. And I don't have this problem. I can't even, I understand the problem and I understand the phantomization of the problem, but I don't know how you handle it because you don't want to stop the train, I feel. Yeah. You don't also want to put whatever your company is at risk, because trades can sink a company by definition.
Oh yeah, the cost on the trades was insane. It was, I wasn't ready for what hit me when I printed those trades.
But then also trades do other things where if you have a trade out on your table, it's a little bit different than if you have a floppy at a con. Also, if you have 4 trades on your table, it's a little bit different. You know, I was speaking to Tom Hutchinson from Big Dog Inc. about this. And so I am very confused because I'm actually very torn on both sides of it. And I get both positions on it. But I'm also saying to myself, like, I don't know what the right call is on and how to do it so that you don't stop the trade. You're financially stable, but you are going to eventually need it unless the whole plan is to have 4 trades at some point, and maybe you got to look it out at 5 years out. I don't know. And this is why I find this interesting, because everybody in comics has a different viewpoint on this. And I don't know. I have a viewpoint where, look, I mean, if I discovered you tomorrow and you had the trade, I would probably pick up a trade if I didn't know you and didn't know your book. I'm like, man, well, you're on issue 8 and the floppies are expensive and you're out of, and you stop. Oh, hell, better yet, you stop printing the first issue of the floppy. All you have is the trade. I'm stuck at that point, which you may or may not do at some point. But obviously, if I want the whole series and I'm at a con and I pick up fast forward, you got 24 issues, 4 trades is going to be cheaper than by far.
Yeah. And that's kind of where I have to decide when I do the second trade. Will I do it just as kind of a standalone, put a modest goal? Because if I were to average out all the different sales, the trade probably accounted for about $1,000 of that last Kickstarter that had a $3,000 goal. Well, that tells me, okay, that's about the new reader market that I have. So I would probably run them separately, but do them back to back, where it's like, okay, first I'll give you issue 13 so you can continue your journey. And then as soon as that one closes, then I do the trade. So, okay, people that just want to start from the beginning, you can grab your trade. Issue 13 people are already sitting with it in their hands. They didn't have to wait for the trade people to get it, and then hopefully have an issue 14 ready to go shortly after, because the art team is moving really quick, where right now we're actually working on the art for issue 11. So the thought of having the trade out by next year is very conceivable because he's able to do a new issue about it. It takes him about 2 months to do the art for it. And since we're so far ahead of Kickstarter, I think next summer is a chance where we can get that next trade moving.
Would you consider punting the trade till January of 2024?
And I might, yeah. It's definitely a thought because the series can keep moving one way or the other.
Here's the reason why I say it is that if you're printing only 100 of the hardcovers, it would make sense for you to participate in the Make 100 challenge on Kickstarter.
That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah, because then you can join in that particular thing. And I literally did print only 100, so it works out beautifully. Of okay, the Make 100, we're making 100 trades. So yeah, in the end, it probably would benefit more. Because even if I'm doing a con, which I keep my con schedule very busy, I still have a trade on the table. And a brand new reader, they're still going to be able to buy that copy of the first trade because the hardcover is about 3/4 of the way sold out. But the soft cover, oh my gosh, I got those everywhere. So I printed a huge amount of those. So those won't be running out anytime soon. And let's just say they did sell out. I just put another print order in right away. Because unlike the hardcover, which I cater to the collectors, saying, hey, you buy this, I'm only going to print 100. I'll never print more. The next time you'll be able to get a fancy hardcover is when you get the fat omnibus, like we were saying. So I think, yeah, waiting till January. Now that you say it, see, I'm getting more tips from you. Getting it from January, I think, would be better because then you participate in the Make 100 and the.
You froze for like the last 15
Yeah, seconds. I saw that. I saw the spinny wheel for a second.
Because I just think it's so interesting because I don't think anybody cares if they're waiting another 4 months, right? True. At this point on Kickstarter, and this is where I think it becomes so interesting. This is why I like having these conversations, is that I think the whole problem with me and everybody, and this is why I'm not a good creator, is I think way too financially about all this stuff. And it diminishes my creativity. Yeah. And it's a problem. It makes me great at buying and selling comics. It doesn't make me good at creating because I'm so worried about cost and monetization and all that I can't force myself to spend $4,500 or $6,000 on a book and not know how it's going to go. And I can't justify it in my head. And it's not about storytelling. Like I legitimately cannot justify spending $6,000, which is basically the same equivalent of funding a Roth IRA. Like I in my head, I cannot actually just commute that, and it limits me. And I'm the first person to say it. And it's an unfortunate side effect of me is that I'm limited in that capacity. But I think it's so interesting because at this stage, I mean, this is what I think a lot of creators aren't dealing with and understanding on Kickstarter. And I think this is what separates somebody who wants to be a professional from somebody who is a hobbyist or really just wants to tell their stories and break. I think there's nothing wrong if you're a comic hobbyist wanting to do a comic. There's nothing wrong if you say, look, I just want to break even. But when you want to become a professional, this is kind of the next stage, I feel. And I'm your thoughts on it.
Yeah, and I think you're right. And it's one of those things where when you make the big investment with a trade, you also have to look at beyond Kickstarter because Kickstarter is just one means of funding the book.
It's a very small market. It's a very small market.
It's a good way because you get a global reach that you don't get if you do a con. You go and do a con, you're selling to the bodies in the room. Where Kickstarter, you have, I have books I've shipped to Singapore, Australia, Belgium, Germany. So it's getting around the world in a way that you couldn't at a con. But the con is also where you make more of that money. You get those people coming, they're buying the book. And my new series that's coming out, that was paid for through con funds. So you have to look at it as, okay, the trades are a slow burn. You're not going to get them back on Kickstarter unless you're, Brian Pulido throwing out the new Lady Death. You're not making that money back through Kickstarter. But if you know that it may take 2 or 3 years and you'll get it all back and you'll eventually double or triple that money that you put into the trades, you have to look at it like that. It's not, it's, to use the running terms, it's definitely a marathon and not a sprint with the trades, where the single issues, Kickstarter can keep those afloat. You can keep yourself moving from one issue to the next with just what Kickstarter can bring in. But a trade, yeah, and nowhere close to bringing in what you need to actually recoup the printing costs on that.
Yeah, and even original graphic novels on Kickstarter are having a hard time. I mean, it's not, it's getting tough. It's getting tough out there, um,
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of ways. And I think that it's a rough place. And so even to talk about that, I mean, I'm curious what your thoughts on Kickstarter are right now, because I could tell you that I am burned out from Kickstarter. I am as a consumer, I am burned out from
Yeah.
Kickstarter. I'm owed a lot of projects. I'm owed, I think, like 15 projects,
Mm.
and I would say maybe like 7 of them are late. And,
Okay.
then out of the other, out of the 7 that are late, 3 of them have communicated, so I'm not
Mhm.
angry, but I'm
Yeah.
also getting frustrated. I mean, it's like $1,200 on the 15 that are late. Like, it's a lot
Wow.
of money. It's a lot of money that I've
Mhm.
backed, and $1,500 doesn't change my life, but it definitely makes me think,
Yeah.
because I could go to my comic shop every week and get books, and
Mhm.
those books may be good, bad, or indifferent,
Yeah.
or I can go back 30 years ago and read I go back further. I go back 50 years ago and read 1980 Teen Titans,
Yeah.
legit my comicsology for like $7 a month. And so I don't know how you feel about it, because I have more access to comics from any era I want. And
Yeah.
I will never run out of content now.
Mhm.
And so I don't know how you feel about the environment and where it's going, and if it's even healthy, because I don't know if it's healthy. I don't.
Yeah, Kickstarter, it's a lot different looking format than it was when I first started. When I put out issue 1, the amount of comics in there, it was a lot smaller. I mean, there were plenty of comics on Kickstarter, but we're talking a minute fraction compared to what you see now. So you have a lot of people you're competing against. And I mean, I'm not going to say mine is a known commodity, but my readers know that they want to get the next issue and they want to continue along. So it gives me an advantage to someone. I imagine myself launching issue 1 right now. That would be a daunting task to try to get it funded and noticed in this sea of indie comics. And plenty of these indie comics are amazing. They're great stories, they're great art, they're doing a great job, but you're dealing with so many other people around you. It's hard to get noticed when everyone else is putting their things out at the same time.
Did you also feel, because I have a budget in life? I'm
Mhm.
presuming you have a budget in your life too, right? Where I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. You have a day job, you get a paycheck, right?
Mhm.
So I have a paycheck. I think a lot of people in America get a paycheck every 2 weeks, maybe once a month. There's some people
Yeah.
have business, they get a distribution. However, you're set up, but you have a budget in life. And
Yeah.
so I have $200 maybe for fun, every
Mhm.
month. And so do I want to give my $200 over here? Do I want to give it over here? Do I
Yeah.
want to do this thing over here? Do I want to, go to the movies instead of backing somebody's book?
Yeah.
And these are complicated questions.
Mhm.
Do I want to go to a bar? Do I want to go to the movies, or do I want to back your book?
Yeah.
And so it gets tricky. And then it's summertime, which probably doesn't help to some degree. You
Yeah.
know, August isn't going well, and then the economy is up and down and stressed
Yeah.
out. And there's a lot of concerns, and we go one or two ways in the economy. And I just see a lot of people barely making it over the finish line.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm wondering if the environment is healthy, where I'm wondering if people's goals are too expensive. I wonder if their art is too expensive. I wonder if they're over expenditure and over capitalized. And
Mhm.
I even wonder if they are throwing 2, 3, 4 grand lower than what it cost them to produce something. And I mean, this is why I say, is it healthy?
Yeah.
Where and this is my question, because I know plenty of creators who are broke. I know
Mhm.
plenty, and I know their financial situations, and I can see it, and I could smell
Mhm.
it. So I don't know, and I'm curious what you think, on all this, because I think we're in a weird time with
Yeah,
this.
and I think a lot of creators are setting their goals lower than what they need. I do it myself. I set a goal that's reasonable and then you hope you get above. But I also look at Kickstarter is a portion of where I'm going to sell the book. And when I get out there and, go to the different cons, hit the different comic shops and stuff like that, go and do signings, that's another side of it that you can earn money at. So Kickstarter, if it's your only way of selling the book, it's going to be difficult unless you're a known name and you can just kind of rest on the fact that people know your name, they know your reputation, they're going to buy your book anyway. But even some of these ones that you see selling huge ones, like Brian Polito was one I mentioned, he's at San Diego Comic-Con with the table trying to sell his book just like any other indie creator. So even these big guns, they have to find a second source of revenue besides just the
I
Kickstarter if
mean,
they want to have success.
look at Pat Chan. Pat Chan does a lot of cons, and he sells a lot of books, and he does well on Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that Brian Pat Chan, I think on his last Kickstarter did like 50,000.
Yeah.
But I think everybody forgets, great, you did 50,000. What if your cost was 30?
Yeah, we don't know.
In which that once if you're producing over 1,000 books
Mm-hmm.
and you have a lot of coverage, your expenses go up naturally.
Yeah.
Now they're not going to go astronomically up because you have more buying power. But I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the other thing too that's very interesting about this is that if you make 500,000 on a Kickstarter, your expenses are not $10,000
No.
by any stretch of the imagination. Now you might be able to print your books for 50 cents instead of 90 cents, which is
True.
a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And you might be able to print a trade much cheaper because you can move a lot more volume.
Yeah.
But you also, you look at Brian Polito's Kickstarters, a lot of stretch goals, a lot of goodie goals, whatever you want to
Oh
call them, a
yeah.
lot of bonus goals, bonus items. Also, he has a lot of rewards and he
Yeah.
has a lot of artist stuff and he has like mystery envelopes and he has 199 of them or
Mm-hmm.
1,900 of them. You got to pack all that shit up. He has a
Yeah, that's a task right there. And I've backed one of his Kickstarters, and his stretch goal envelope is just stuffed.
I
It
mean,
is loaded with things, and that's yeah, like I said, someone's packing that up. Someone's grabbing sticker, magnet, keychain,
Brian Polito, for those,
foil card, signature that you
he,
you
he
you
has
bought
a
your signature plate, and yeah, that is a task. And
it's
then the
very
book on
different.
top of it all with which cover did they buy? Because he offers lots of different covers. Did they buy the not safe for work one? Package it, get everything packaged right. I don't even want to think about trying to be the
What people
fulfillment team on that.
what people don't understand about Brian Polito is that he does 500,000 on Kickstarter. I think I could say this. Hopefully, if he sees this, hopefully I'm more right than wrong. But he has a fulfillment team. So
Oh,
those,
absolutely. He's not sitting in his living room like I am when I start fulfilling my book.
I'm sure with certain things he's fulfilling it himself.
Yeah.
If there are items that are very customized, which I think there are a few, I'm
Mhm.
sure he's heavily involved
Yeah.
in. If you're spending $5,000 on an item from Brian Polito, I'm pretty sure
He's
certain
the one
items,
packaging that one.
or he's involved in making sure it's at the right place. But the
True.
point is that what people don't understand is that if you have a fulfillment team, you're paying your staff.
Yeah.
You have staff at that point. You are a corporation.
Mhm.
So that like your artists. So if you went out and hired 10 artists, you're not paying their health care. You're not paying a wage. You're not
Yeah.
paying them to do certain things. With Brian Polito, he has a staff. When he
Yeah.
hires Sunku Minaki, he's not paying Sunku Minaki as a staff member. His fulfillment team is treated as probably an employee or a
Yeah.
contractor versus a artist making $1,200 for a cover. A
Mhm.
contractor either gets an hour wage or is paid a contract to do a job, which is
Yeah.
very different. So Brian Polito is not making $500,000 every time he does Lady Death,
Yeah.
not by a long shot. Again, expenses go up. for
Mhm.
a reason. And I mean, it's just fascinating to me right now with all of this. And I don't really know. And this is why I say I don't know if it's healthy. I don't know if it's healthy because I was speaking to somebody and the person wants to get out more books a year. And I don't know if
Mhm.
getting out 15 books from a creator on Kickstarter is a good thing. I don't know
Right.
if it is. And the reason why I say this is that I think you can bleed dry your customer. I think
Yeah.
you can bleed dry, who's backing you, and then they
Mhm.
miss something and then they get upset or they
Yeah.
can afford everything. And even at a $20 level, I mean, $300 if you're releasing 15 books a year is a lot of money for
Yeah.
one person. And
That's true.
so I think it's a very tricky thing, and I also think that you on the opposite side as the producer, I mean, your liquidity is insane at that point. I know
Mhm.
this. I just went through a liquidity position. When you go through a $25 to $35,000 business expansion, utilizing debt, cash flow, and sell through points, it is a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
And I know, I mean, I don't know what the average comic costs, but what is it like 3 grand on average if
I
you
would
hire
say so. Yeah,
outside.
roughly for the printing and the art and everything else. Actually, no, that would be more for just the art. The 3 grand is going to get you a book to print, not a book printed.
So I mean, if you're doing 15, what is it? I mean, I'm really bad at math. What is that? 45,000.
Yeah.
So I mean, and this is why I raised the question of health in the industry. Is it really healthy for creators who are producing a lot of books to spend 45K every
Mhm.
single year to produce 15 books, or would it make more sense to do four and spend 12 and
Yeah.
actually be in a healthier, profitable, more position? Because I don't know if more books actually equals more clout, equals more notoriety, or more fame, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know if it equals that. I don't.
No. I mean, I think more books equals more trust from your readers because they know that you're not just one of these guys that's going to give you 2 issues and disappear. But the thing is, that's why I think if I can do an Immortal Era every 3 months, I'm perfectly content. And my readers aren't overwhelmed. They're getting 4 new books a year and not 14. Or, someone trying to even keep up with Marvel and give them 12. The thought of running a Kickstarter every month, oh my gosh, that seems nightmarish because it becomes a second job. I mean, I work my day job, I get home, and I put my time and effort into this Kickstarter, into networking, into the things you need to do to make it successful. And I'm happy to do them because I'm passionate about this book and getting it out there. But the thought of doing it month after month after month with no time to just recoup and breathe, especially because I have living room fulfillment. I'm sitting here packaging every single one of those pledges, and you get that, you run it for a month, then you're fulfilling it for a few weeks. You need a little time to breathe. So if you were trying to do it monthly, yeah, I think anyone would hit burnout. Unless you're someone who's hiring a team to do it for you, you're going to burn out. And even if you love your book, I would I would finish writing it one way or the other. I would have the scripts for all 24 issues, or maybe revert it back to a novel because I want to tell the story, but you don't want to let yourself hit that point of too much. So I guess it's that fine line. If you're someone who's happy working at that level and you have the time to give it, then go for it. But if you're someone who still has to worry about, okay, I got a mortgage to pay and the day job has to come first, then you have to realize it's okay to ease up. You give someone 2, 3, 4 books a year, they're still going to be happy because your readers know the story's going to continue. It's going to go on.
It's
But yeah,
interesting.
you don't have to move at this breakneck pace because eventually you're going to find yourself done.
It's interesting you bring this up. I find that my interviews are actually better when I do 2 or 3 a week instead of four. It's
Mhm.
that extra fourth one that kills me. And when I started doing 2 a week, the
Mhm.
interviews were better. I had
Yeah.
more time to actually relax, and it wasn't as aggressive on my body. And I
Yeah.
found that I was actually able to do it more efficiently, and I'm
Mhm.
able to function. And I work a 40-hour work week. On
Yeah.
top of this, I run a business on the side, my eBay store, that when, obviously doing that stuff and then this, and when I'm doing 2 versus 4, well, I like doing 4. I've had a change of saying maybe if I slow down the pace and I only do 100 interviews a year, 100 interviews is a lot.
That is, yeah.
It's a lot a year. And, versus doing 200, or even doing 150, what is that extra 50 really going to gain me? Versus maybe I should slow down and pick and choose who I want to interview, how I want to interview, and why I want to interview. And guess what? I'm actually able to function. And when you park the gas, I'm able to do a better job. And so I think it's so interesting. I think this is such an interesting topic because I think sometimes people are just terrified saying, I need to produce 20 books in a year so that I'm noticed. Yeah. And I think that's not really the case. I think if you write a good product and you just chip at it, there you go. You might actually get further than people realize. But what do I know? I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong. Would it be the first time? I'm happy to take an L on this one. Happy to. But I digress. But I just think it's interesting because I'm curious. I am a consumer and I sell comics. Yeah. So I'm not a writer. So obviously I have a very different opinion on the industry than somebody who's in the industry and seeing it firsthand. Yeah. But I digress because I do want to talk about your rewards. You got a bunch of them. So they're fun. Digital catch up is what you always offer. So you can just get the 8th issue. I think you have the digital catch up for all 8 issues digitally for somebody who likes to read digitally or is in another country because shipping sucks to other countries.
Yeah, shipping's so bad. I don't blame anyone for going digital with the book because the shipping just keeps climbing.
It's brutal. And then I think you have a physical copy of issue 8 that you can just buy. Yeah. Which I have photos that I'm going to show in a second. Then you have a physical copy of issue 1 that I think you always make available.
Yeah, because that way, if you're not ready to invest in 8 issues, you check out issue 1, see if it's for you. The next campaign, you can get yourself caught up. So I always try to have an issue 1 on there. And then in the add-ons, you can get 2 through 8. If you decide, okay, I want 1 and 2, you can grab 1 from the main rewards and grab a 2 and throw it in there. And it's always something I put there. Half the times, none of them sell, but I always want to let people. You want to welcome the new readers, not just cater to those who have been along from the whole time.
And then I think you also have the physical and a poster as well. I think you have a short print run, which is what are those, like 25?
25 each, yeah.
And then I think you have some foil stuff as well. Is that limited to?
The foils are 25 as well.
So you have that, and then obviously you're also offering the soft graphic novel, and then also you're offering that with issues 7 and 8. I think you're also offering the whole thing as floppies as well. As you just stated, you're also offering, I think, some hardcovers too.
Yeah, you can catch up with the hardcover as well. And I should probably go in, I didn't even think about it, and offer the soft and hardcover just by themselves, where you don't have to do it as a catch-up tier. So that's something I'll probably go in tonight and update, because some people may not want to catch up with the whole thing. They want to start with the first volume and, see if it's their flavor. So that's something. When you're saying that, I'm like, yeah, you're right. You're naming all the tiers, but I don't have just the trade by itself as a regular reward, not just attached to a catch-up tier.
It could also be that somebody just wants, the hardcover, and that's what they want because they're a bookshelf guy.
Yeah, that's true.
And so that's out there too. And then also you do some retail stuff, and this is interesting. So obviously, I think you do retail for the graphic novels.
Yeah,
I think you're doing retail stuff for floppies, but I'm sure that if you don't have some for floppies and somebody wanted to buy 5 of each, I'm sure something could be worked out somewhere.
Oh yeah, if that's what they wanted. Most of the retailers I find now, they just want to get the trade in because they don't want to have to go and try to keep floppies. Because I know one comic shop that stocks everything I put out, they've run out of issues 1 and 2, and they have overstock of 3 through 6, but no one's going to come and buy 3, 4, 5, and 6 without getting 1 and 2. So they were so happy when the trade was out because it made it a lot easier for them to just get the trade and then, try to catch up, grab a few more copies of 1 and 2. But at this point, I don't print high numbers of my floppies anymore. Besides the most current one, I print maybe 25 at a time, keeping it going. Besides issue 1, every time I do another print run, I do about 250, because that's the one that people will come up at a show and buy just in issue 1. They want to give the series a try without having to invest in a full trade. So issue 1 I keep in stock. The rest I let those dwindle down to almost nothing.
Let's actually talk about retail, because this is what I think everybody in comics fails at. I think a lot of people, not everybody, but I think a lot of people in comics have never really spoken to somebody in retail, a comic shop, an eBay store. And I think they're like, hey, Andrew, what works for you? It should be the question. And that's the only question that should ever be asked to a comic shop if you want them in on your Kickstarter for a retail pack, is what works for you. It could be volume, it could be covers, it could be material, or it could be price, or it could be all of that. I mean, I can't say that I'm in negotiations. I actually just worked out 2 wholesale deals, and we were having a conversation where the problem wasn't the price, it was the volume. Where I can't suffice 50 books in my store.
Yeah.
I could suffice 15.
Okay.
So they're floppies. So a person's like, yeah, I could sell you for the same price as I would sell you 50. And I said, I would like to test your book in my shop. And person's like, that makes sense. That was the problem, is that it was a volume problem. It wasn't a price problem.
Yeah.
I said to the person, I'll pay a little bit more. The person's like, no, dude, it's fine. I'm going to print these anyway. If you just want 15, I get it. And so I think that's something that's fascinating. I think that's an issue with retail, is a lot of times it's one of those 4 issues. And I think a lot of creators do not understand how to ask. Say, hey, Andrew, I know you sell books. What would work in your store? Is it a volume issue? Is it a price issue? Is it exclusivity? I mean, I've seen retail packages where I like half the covers, but I don't like the other half because I know they're not going to sell in my store. So I would rather buy 10 of cover C and that's it, and I'll pay an extra $20 because I can make money on cover C. So I think it's a real problem. And so how do you deal with that? Because I think that's really interesting.
I've definitely talked to a lot of retailers, and once they knew a trade was coming, they kind of held off on buying the floppies. They would rather have waited and put the trade out, because then you don't have to worry. Okay, sorry about that. But yeah, they sold out of 1, 2, and 3, and they don't want to, have 4, 5, and 6 just rotting on their shelf. So it's better for them to have the trade, because eventually those will go, and you don't have to worry about, well, now nobody wants these other 3 that you can't understand if you haven't read 1, 2, and 3. So I talked to a lot of them, and most of them said, yeah, if you have a trade, we want to wait on that. So when it came out, I said, okay, I have the trade. Here was my cost. I'll sell it to you at that just to get it on your shelf. And they're, most are good to buy a stack of 10, because they're not, eventually they're going to sell, but they're not going to be incomplete. People can buy that one thing and not have to go hunt down the ones that were missing there.
So let me ask you this. I mean, do you feel that a trade is also treated differently to some degree? Because now I feel a lot of younger comic readers are familiar with manga, and they're familiar with that, I guess, trade-esque, we call it. I buy manga and whatever we're gonna call it. I don't know how. There's a name for it. I can't think of it. It starts with a T. Yeah. I would prefer not to embarrass myself tonight any more than I need to. But I'm sure somebody's is gonna find out that word for me. But I find that a lot of young readers right now in comics really are not interested in floppies, but they want to trade. and they'll go up to a comic and be like, "Oh, I love what you did. Here's my first comic," and they plop a floppy down. And I was in a lecture with Paul Levitz, and he was explaining it to me a while back. He was the professor, I was the student.
Yeah.
I live on the East Coast, guys, in case you didn't know. But anyway, the point is that, do you think that there, to some degree, is some more prestige or more appeal to a trade, because that's kind of where we're going in comics right now? I feel a little bit
I
where
think so, because the mangas are outselling what's being produced in the US by a lot. And people, I think they like that they can get a big chunk of story with one purchase. They don't have to wait, they get it all in one shot. So trades definitely change the dynamics of my table when I'm working at a con. People see that trade and they're like, okay, cool, I can just get this trade and I get it all in one swoop. Same thing at a comic shop. Especially, I mean, I'm not Marvel, so you're not getting a monthly book. And, people at the comic shop, I have people that I know I'm on their pull list. So when the new book comes out, it's on their pull list, but it's just gonna be like, surprise, here's another issue. Because if they're not following along, it's just gonna pop up in their pull one day, and they don't know what to do. But if they just wait, which a lot of people have said, like, hey, I like the idea of your book, but I'm gonna wait till you have a trade. I said, that might be 2 years. They said, I'm okay with that. I would rather wait those 2 years and just get one shot with the book and go that way. So I think the trade, it just brings in the manga kind of readers, because that's what younger comic readers seem to be flocking toward. And you want to make sure you have something. And I had someone come and buy the trade, and they said, okay, do I read it from the back? I said, no, this is still US. You're going to read it like a regular book. But yeah, they didn't know. They thought, okay, I know when I read these things, I flip them backwards and start reading them, the opposite way you would. So I said, no, this is still a US comic, but it's got a self-contained story in it.
It's kind of funny. It's kind of funny. I'm sorry. Like, I could just imagine. I could just imagine the person asking genuine. Like, you're not trying to be like a smartass. They're genuinely asking.
Yeah.
Like, how do I read this? Right.
Yeah, they really did. I mean, they weren't, like I said, they weren't trying to be jerks. They were just like, okay, cool, flip it over. And it's like, no, that will make you very confused.
Yeah. It's kind of like that scene in Ted 2 where Liam Neeson is buying the tricks, and he's like, are you sure that these are just not for kids, and nobody's going to be following me? And Ted's like, yeah, we don't have the budget for that. And then at the end of the movie, for those who haven't seen it, Liam Neeson comes back in, and he's all battered and bruised, and he has like the tricks, and he's trying to return it. It's a really funny scene, the whole freaking start to finish. But anyway, I digress. It's like my favorite scene in any movie. So it's brilliant. But anyhow, yeah, and then there's some other stuff that you do too, which is cool. You do original art, which is awesome. And your original art's like, I think 120, 140?
Yeah, somewhere around there. Actually, the original art usually sells out. I think there's one page that hasn't sold so far, but my original art goes pretty well. I don't offer a lot because a lot of it's kept for my private collection. Just
selfish.
How dare you, most sir. Of it for myself, but I sell enough so that I can afford to pay for the original art from my artist and not end up at a major loss. So sell enough pieces. There's always 3 covers, so I'm always willing to let one of the covers go. And then I pick a few of the good exterior pages, and yeah, they're always there. They're generally really good sellers. And I think what I'm going to do when I reach the campaign for issue 9 is go back and add original art from every single issue, where it's like, okay, here's an original art page from 1, here's one from number 2, and give people a chance to get original art from campaigns that have long closed.
So this is the thing that I think is interesting, right? Because I can't afford, and you can't afford, presumably, maybe you can, I don't know, I shouldn't speak for you, but I can't afford, like a John Romita Jr., whatever Spider-Man thing from Marvel, like a page.
Yeah.
Where that shit's just out of my budget.
Oh, definitely.
I was tempted to buy, a Scotty Young, cover for like 2,800. But
Mhm.
that's also pushing my budget
Yeah.
heavy. At the time I had money, and it was a real decision, and
Mhm.
I think I made the right decision because it would be a cool piece, and I think it would be worth it. But in the long run, I invested the money in the stock market, which
Mhm.
was probably the adult decision to make.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but $200 for a piece of original art, even on an indie book, that's affordable for
Yeah.
most people. I mean, I've spent $200 on a campaign very
Mhm.
easily. I'm sure you have as well at some
Oh,
point.
yeah.
So if I say, cool, like this page looks cool, this cover looks awesome, it's $200. It's an easy choice where it's affordable, and I think it's actually healthy for comic collecting in a lot of ways too. I was speaking with Dustin Burnell about this, where keeping art affordable for
Yeah,
people in their collections is something that I think is good for the comic community,
I think so.
because I think it's been lost. And I understand there's money to be made. I'm in the business of making money, but
Mhm.
it's also nice that somebody can get a piece of original art
Yeah.
that's not going to break their bank. I mean, I even
Mhm.
think $500 is not that much. But when you start going to like 1,500, 2 grand, I mean,
It's
it's
yeah, I would need a bigger reputation to try to put a price like that on it. I try to put a decent price, and it's nice. I've actually had readers send me a picture of their man cave where they put the original art up. You always get a poster of that cover as well if it's a cover. And one of them he had bought the book in CGC.
he
He bought
shadow
the
boxed it,
original
right?
art cover, and he got the poster with it. And he showed me his man cave where he had all three displayed with each other, and it's just like, wow,
Did
that's
he shadow
amazing.
box
And
it? Did you?
yeah,
Did
he shadow boxed all
That's
three,
great.
and it looked really amazing. Where he had the original art one side, the poster on the other, and then in the middle the CGC book, and it was just a beautiful display. And the fact that it made its way in his man cave, and I'm seeing his man cave, it's a lot of, he's got original art from Marvel, from DC, CGC, books that would be thousands of dollars. The fact that he put mine in that same category was a beautiful thing. And I was like, yeah, that is so cool to see that you still put the same kind of love and care into this indie book. And, he was able to get all of those pieces for probably less than 500 because he got the CGC of one of the short print covers. So those cost a little bit more, but I try to keep everything affordable and, at a point that it's not going to break the bank for me.
Yeah, I think that's the other thing too, is that, I mean, I've been on campaigns where I'm just like, this thing is gonna bankrupt me. I'm running the other way.
Yeah.
And I think what I'm learning in my eBay business is that I have baseball cards for $7.50, and then I'm gonna be listing items in the next week for like $300 a pop.
Okay.
So you can come into my store and buy a pack of Greg Bill Watson trading cards for $15, or
Mhm.
you could spend $200 on a comic with me.
Mhm.
And I have everything in between. So I
Yeah.
have $40 books because I understand that not everybody so you could buy a Tops Now baseball card for like $7.50 from me if
Yeah.
you're in the hobby, but then there's rare stuff that I have that I'm asking more for. But I think it's really important, and it's a lesson that I'm learning as a business, and I think it's something that comic creators can learn in Kickstarters, is that you want to have a tier for somebody to enter in
Mhm.
at. You want to have the high end, and you want to have everything in between, because
Yeah.
maybe I only have $50 and I want 2 covers, right?
Mhm.
But maybe somebody only has $12, right? Or they only have $20.
Yeah.
And do you really want to alienate somebody by making your lowest tier $35? I mean,
Yeah.
I've seen it where I'm like, I'm into your book, your covers look great, but this is a $25 cover and it's still gonna be like $10 shipping. Like, I'm
Yeah.
pretty tightly pushed out
Mhm.
effectively. Like, I've seen people who have $30 cover A's, and I'm just like, I can't. Your book looks awesome, but I can't support your book because I can't afford it.
Yeah. And I try to look at when I'm selling this book, even though it's just, it's a Kickstarter book, I'm still competing with Marvel, with DC, with Image. And the fact I don't want to make someone look at my book and think, well, I could go buy 4 books from the big guys for the same price. So If you're in the
Or,
US, you can get
or
issue 8 for just $13, and that's shipped and everything. You're not going to pay an additional shipping. So sure, it's still more than Marvel and DC, but
on
it's not astronomically more.
on just so everybody knows, I buy in previews, right? So I
Mhm.
buy in previews. In previews, I get Marvel and DC books for $2.50.
Okay.
So I mean, I buy 90 days in advance.
Yeah.
Don't think, and I'm not buying a bulk either. I'm just previewing it out because
Mhm.
they're probably getting a massive discount and they pass it on to me.
Yeah.
Like Midtown Comics, but Midtown Comics is a conglomerate I've been buying from years from them. Um, they do a great job. The point is that so when I look at a campaign, I look at Kickstarter. If somebody has an indie book for $15, I consider that middle of the road. I consider that a fair entry point. I consider a little high. I really like $12 if it's a cover
Mhm.
A. 12
Yeah.
bucks, I won't balk. I won't balk. If
Yeah.
I like your concept, 12 bucks, I'm in. Right?
Mhm.
Easy. I don't even think. Cover A, cover B, perfectly fine.
Yeah.
15, cover B, cover C, $15. If it's a Steph Wilson and we're really getting into it, 15, 20 bucks.
Yeah.
But then if it's a limited 100 print run, 25 is where I'm
Mhm.
at with that. If it's a limited 50, maybe $50, and then so on and so forth. But
Yeah.
like you tear up, but like I look at this shit and I'm like, if you're charging me 20 bucks for your cover A and I'm on
Mhm.
the fence, probably not going to get over the fence.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And I do back a lot of Kickstarters, and that's kind of the thing for me. Like if I can get the book in my hands for 15 or less, then I'm going to call that something I'm going to jump on. And that's why I try to keep mine. If you back in the first 2 days, you can actually get the book shipped to you for 10. So I drop the price. It goes up after the first 48 hours, but I kind of reward the people who grab it right away.
That's how I operate. I bring in merch. First person who buys from me gets the best deal usually.
Mhm.
Unless the person behind them is going to buy all 9 of the rest of them. So if I run in 10 cards and one person paid $30 for card 1 and then person 2 wants to buy 9 cards from me, they're going to get a discount.
Yeah.
That's happened. It's happened where somebody's bought 8 cards from me and they're like, "Hey, could you sell it to me for like 50 cents?" I'm like, "Done." No
Mhm.
questions. Like
Yeah.
hands up like, "Sure." Just here you go. Like it was great.
Mhm.
And it was a very exciting day when that happened.
Yeah.
I bought cards and within 12 hours they were all gone. I'm like, holy fucking shit.
Nice.
Oh, it's great. It's great. It's great. And then the funny story is that before the 8 of them went away, I raised my price by $4. And
Mhm.
so I legitimately made like an extra. Shoot, I'm really bad at math. I made an extra $32 by raising my price by
Mm.
$4. It was a crazy moment.
Yeah.
But I digress. But again, person who usually buys first gets the best deal, and then it
Mhm.
goes up from there. But yeah, no, I think because for me, and I don't know how you feel, but price is a very big factor right now
Yeah.
for me. People say, "Oh, well, you shouldn't base something on price." I kind of call bullshit on that a little bit because if you have a book for $10 and somebody has a book for $15 and I compare both your books and I say they're equal and everything but price, the
Mhm.
likelihood of me backing your book is higher because it's $10.
Yeah.
And I think now if you know I can't think of a great cover artist, but if somebody has better cover art and their book is $5 more, your books are not equal anymore, and
Yeah,
that's
that's
the
true.
difference.
You have to look at everything being equal, and that's where I could venture into getting other cover artists, but it comes down to, like we talked about, some people will blow their complete campaign with the money they spend on the cover artists, and I'm not ready to do that. I would rather use my main artist so people know they're going to get the same quality that you're looking at inside of the book and keep it at an affordable level. But what I do to make my variant covers have more appeal is keep the print counts insanely low. Where most of the time I sell out of the entire print run through Kickstarter, and it's kind of, if you snooze, you lose. There's 25. I keep 5 of them to send off to CGC. So really there's only 20 that are for sale. So if you don't grab them during the campaign, odds are you're not going to find one sitting on my table.
No, it makes sense. It makes sense. I love exclusivity. I built a business based on exclusivity, and I think it is actually the key to
Yeah.
Kickstarter in a lot of ways. I think Kickstarter is its own market, and I think exclusivity is the key. I have
Mhm.
made a lot of money on exclusivity.
Mhm.
Um, and I understand. I understand when I mean I'm a crypto guy. I'm a crypto guy. I'm a big Bitcoin guy. I like Ethereum a lot, and I like the fact that Bitcoin there's only 21,000 of them in the world.
Mm.
Sounds like a lot. That's not a lot of Bitcoin,
Not worldwide.
not worldwide. And I would say about maybe like 5 million of those. Actually, no. Is it 21,000 or is it 21 million? I think it's 21 million now that I think about it, but still not a lot. Not a lot. Um, I think 5 million of those Bitcoins are lost.
Oh, wow.
So they're in hard wallets in legitly landfills,
Mm.
and they know where they are. They don't know where they are in the landfill, but they know what landfill it's in. So
Mm.
if they were to start digging up a landfill, I mean, they could find $5 million worth of Bitcoin. I mean, it's
Wow.
not, it's insane. But again, 21 million of something is not a lot worldwide.
No,
It's
not
not.
for the entire world.
So I think exclusivity is king, and I think you should raise your prices on your short runs.
Mm.
That's just my opinion. Um, that's what I think at the very least. But again, you have a lot of CGC stuff as well, big
Yeah,
stack market stuff like that, because people can get stuff CGC from you. I think, right?
they can. Yeah, I can do if I think I had one backer through all my campaigns say, "All right, I want you to send this book into CGC signature certified for me," and I can do that. And if I do a signing at a comic shop or something like that, I can also do a CGC signature where anyone who buys a book, I can send in a amount of the books and have them come back to that comic shop graded with the yellow label.
Which is a nice thing in a lot of ways, and I think people don't understand that since because I think the arrangement is that since you're the writer, the artist, and you own it, you can do that, and
Yeah.
it's treated as a witness signature
I
from
can
C.
witness my own. So anytime I'm doing a signing, I can always witness my own signature and send in whatever happened at that signing from to CGC, and I have the forms, the proper forms to fill out and everything. And I've done it a few times. It's fun when you're doing a signing and people know that they can actually come back from that signing and have a CGC coming their way.
Yeah, no. I think again, spec market is huge. It's only getting bigger, and at this point, I don't know where your book is going to be in 5 years, as far as Hollywood, as far as Netflix, as well as far as Hulu, Peacock, whatever. But
Mhm.
everything is getting optioned. Everything is always on the table.
Yeah.
Also, comics are not the only thing anymore.
Yeah.
Games, video games, novels. I can't think of other things that might be in play, but comics are not the only thing anymore
Mhm.
at this stage. And I have a friend, Chris Brown, who does a bunch of games and board games, and he turned his board game into a comic. And
Mm.
so you could turn a comic into a board game if you wanted, or a
True.
card game. And so it's something that is very, very wide open. And I could easily see Immortal Era as a like card game where you are
Yeah.
battling and it's like a deck building card game. I could easily see it very easily.
Oh yeah.
Um, it'd be a lot of fun. It'd be a lot of fun. Or it could be like the Ninja High School card game where you have to battle through a scenario with your
Mhm.
cards. That's fun too. So
Yeah.
a lot of cool stuff. Sky's the limit. But we've been speaking for a while, and I do want to give you a chance to promote yourself because I know you got a lot of stuff going on
I do.
with comics. I know you got a new series coming out that I don't know anything about. So I'm very prepared today.
Yeah,
But
you'll get your early copy of that once it's actually ready. So that one is actually going to the letterer tomorrow. So we'll be lettering that one right away. So that'll be a quick turnaround, and you can get your early copy of that one when it's ready.
yeah, so what is the pitch for that one? For
So
those who
that one, it's in a shared universe with Immortal Era, and it tells the story of a hitman who is killed on the job, and as soon as he dies, he's recruited by heaven and hell to try to bring in the most souls before the portal to the afterlife is closed with the beginning of the Immortal Era.
So he doesn't have a lot of time.
He doesn't. He has a short clock, and both heaven and hell are it's more to them, it's a big game. And they're in this game to get the most souls so they have bragging rights, because they know the Immortal Era is coming. They know that in the year 2000, all of Earth, basically all of the portals that would normally bring souls to the afterlife, they're all going to be closed. So they want to, just for the rights of bragging, be able to have the most souls before everything closes out. So they're recruiting people to either redeem souls or corrupt souls. And they look for what are all the souls have a different color. They're looking for gray souls because they're ones that are kind of the fence sitters. So you can bring them to the good side, you can bring them to the bad side. And our hero, or our anti-hero, starts as a corruptor trying to bring souls down to hell.
This is interesting. Now I might back this one. Now I'm interested. Now I'm really interested in this.
It's a wild one. It's a shared universe, but it's got a full different vibe and feel, all more black comedy feel to that one.
Have you read Penny for Your Soul by Tom Hutchinson?
I haven't.
Oh, you got to read that. You got to read that, because this is right up in that vein. Did you read J.D. Rosario's book, Limbo, yet?
I haven't read that one either.
This is right up.
Those are my required reading, because with this one, I just actually finished the final script for issue 2 of that series, and it came back from the editor, and it just goes in really wild directions, where I figure Immortal Era, I've kind of created the rules, so I have to follow those rules, where this one, I can throw all the rules out the window. The only rule is, in the year 2000, everyone becomes immortal. So everything before that can just be this kind of crazy wild book.
You might be my September only Kickstarter. If it's out in September,
it'll be October launch for that one.
You'll probably be in a few good companies in October, but I'm probably not getting back in anybody in September.
Yeah.
But I'll probably back this one. I'm curious. I'm now interested. This actually,
that'd be great, because this one, I was gonna think about September, but I have my September has to be dedicated to mailing books. I got to make sure all the people who backed me get their books in hand. So this one, I'm actually going to send to print as soon as the lettering for Corruptor is done. I'm going to send that off to print, because I'm going to be printing Corruptor and Immortal Era 8 all in one shot, so that if you back either one, you don't have a long delay. You'll have your books in hand quickly, and then for Corruptor, the books will be already ready to ship as soon as the campaign closes.
And that makes sense. I mean that makes absolute sense. And if you can do that, I was speaking to somebody, and I can't say who, but I said, hey, if you're running a campaign back-to-back or 6 weeks away from each other, you should back both of them, and you should eat the fat on the cost. And if you have to borrow even a little bit of money, you should borrow a little bit of money, because you're going to save yourself a lot more money in the long run.
Yeah, going to a higher print count drops the price per book quite significantly. So that's what I looked at, is I want to do at least 1,000 for the first print of Corruptor. I might even do more, because at the moment I've sold almost 3,000 copies of issue 1 of Immortal Era. So that tells me more printing isn't going to hurt. Yeah, I mean, I got to find a place to hold all these books. That becomes the issue. It's like, where am I going to put them? Because it sure as hell isn't going to be the garage, where it can get a rain leak. It can, the sun, it can get 120 degrees in there. So where am I going to store them inside the house? So that becomes the challenge. Is maybe I stick with 1,000, because where are they going to go? And there's going to be at least 350 issue 8s that'll be coming out. Like I said, most of the short print ones, I don't have to store them, because I don't end up with many of those left when the campaign finishes.
Welcome to my world of bringing in $25,000 worth of merch.
Yeah, it's daunting. The stack of boxes for those trades. oh my gosh, that's my office now.
Let me
That's all
put
that
this way.
exists in there.
My mother is very unhappy with me. Not because I'm not doing a good job selling, but because it takes over the house.
Yeah,
And
they'll do that. Trust me. If
and
you
when
look
you have
behind me below the records, that's all trades. It's kind of like trades everywhere you look. But yeah, I mean, it's a thing where I don't want to underprint and have to go to a second print right
Ed,
away.
Ed, this is the life we choose, and this is the
It
life.
is. I can't complain. It's a good problem to have, knowing that I've sold enough Immortal Era ones that I don't want to make the print count too low. But yeah, once you get over that 1,000, the price breaks come in, and I
It's
put the
also
banner for Comics Wellspring on this campaign, so whatever I do will have the additional 10%. So yeah,
also
I'm looking
what
forward to doing one giant print. This will be my biggest ever.
also what it is that if you're going to do an issue 2 and issue 3 and you're going to offer issue 1, all of a sudden maybe you don't have to print a bunch of issue 1s again for your issue
Yeah.
2, and that expenditure goes down immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Where you're buying time and you're buying economics later on, meaning that if I was to do a book, which is up in the air at this point, and if I'm going to do anything, it'll be in 2025.
Okay.
Just because right now I am handling wholesale. Next year I'm going to handle my first exclusive, and then I might produce a book in 2025.
Okay.
Just because the way my business is going, it's just it makes the most sense to follow what's working, and I'm on a certain path. And I'm just smart enough to know where I'm at. But if I had the ability and I knew I was going to do 4 issues in a book in a series, I would print a bunch of issue 1s up front, not because I want to spend the money necessarily, but because I'm never going to print those issue 1s again, and they're all going to be first print runs.
Yeah, and
And
that's the big question I always get with Immortal Era is, do you have any first prints? And I'm thinking, we're on print number 5. My first prints, I have one CGC that I put on the table, and it's a 9.6, not even a 9.8, but it's got a $250 price tag on it. Because I said, you won't find another issue 1. These I had to hunt down. I had to go back to comic shops and say, like, hey, if you haven't sold them, I'll buy them right back from you. I found a few people that listed them on eBay. I've bought them off eBay. So I'm hunting down all the first prints I can get and then immediately shipping them off to CGC to get them graded. So any volume 1 you find, if you can hunt your own down there, they've popped up on eBay here and there. But if you can't, then the only way you're getting a nice clean one is at my table, because the last one I saw on eBay, he was showing it, and it's just a wreck. I'm like, I don't even want one that's a wreck. Then I got to pay to get it pressed and everything else. So yeah, I'm always hunting down first prints because that's what everyone asks for at the table.
No, I get it. I hunt down first prints. I hunt down rare books. I hunt down low number books. I completely get it, and I am well versed in this area. And I'm not even going to try with your book. I'm not going to try. Nothing against your book and the Immortal Era. I'm just not going to hunt down a first copy because it is going to be a long journey, and I do not feel like walking.
Yeah, I'll make it easy. If you ever see me at a table, you can find one for a very expensive price. And people even say, you're charging more than this Marvel book. I'm like, it's rare. It's a more rare book. Good. You can go buy that Marvel one at 10 different tables. Find another table with mine.
No, it happens. I get it. I'm not challenging you. I'm just saying.
Oh no, but that's what I tell people, because they scoff at the price when I see it. And I said, you know what? If I don't sell it, let's say worst case scenario, I keep it for my own collection and it's still a win.
See, what most people don't understand about my business is that I am not selling comics.
Yeah.
I use comics as an asset class, and I'm selling an asset class. So if I have a book that's worth, $200, right, and it takes 6 months to sell, I can handle the debt.
Yeah.
So that's the key. Now there's things that I want to get rid of. I'm slowly doing down a Pop Funko collection, and I'll get rid of a bunch of that shit for whatever, because it's just taking up space.
Just to clear the space. And that becomes an issue too, because I'm definitely running into you're out of space issue, and you're about to do a giant print run. And there's already no room to hold the last giant print run you did for those trades.
My whole
I
thing.
feel your pain on that one. It's like I got to sell some stuff just to clear the space.
So I don't mind taking a hit on the Pop Funko stuff. It's turned out to be a not great investment play for me.
Yeah.
And so if I get 40 cents on the dollar for it and I get rid of half the collection, my parents will be happy. I'll be happy. It's in my parents' basement, and they'll get off my case. And then I'll just take that money and I'll redeploy it into a stock, which takes
something
up
better. Yeah, something that has more life than a Funko Pop that are quickly going into the Beanie Baby bubble burst.
So. I mean, look, there's some that I've sold for a lot of money. I've sold.
There's still some rare ones. People will still pay for the Comic-Con exclusive ones and things like that.
Let's just say that my Cabbage Man from The Last Airbender has served me well, and I have my own copy, and that one is still desirable, and even in a damaged form, that one people will kill for. And the Sasha, from Attack on Titan, all of them were damaged, and they all trade for like $110, $120 a pop. A $10 item going for $120 is insane.
Yeah, that you can't beat that.
And so I bought one for me, and I have sold one, and my mom was like, "You have another one?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know, and I want to keep it because I already sold one for $120. Leave me alone."
Yeah, but already got it all back.
The point is that, but again, Pop Funkos take up a lot of space. Comics don't take up as much. Yeah. I can store, legitly. I'm trying to do the math. 24 pops takes up the size of 2 long boxes for me.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So 600 comics are the equivalent of 24 Pop Funkos. So I would rather have the comics because I can store a lot more comics than I can have Pop Funkos. And that's the end of the day. And so I don't mind taking a loss on something for space, but I get it. Space is a problem. But again, you will move your merch and you will save yourself. It will cost you $400 in space in the long run, and you will save yourself a lot more than that because you're going to save yourself time, without a doubt. Without a doubt. But I don't need to tell you that. I mean, that's a given.
That's why I'm making this one the big one, just 2 books in one shop, because it's the best. It's the best thing to do economically, even if at first it's going to be a daunting task of trying to find a place to put all these things. But I'll find a place. I can squish them in, crevices here and there, and hopefully just watch them disappear, because that's the goal. It's like, okay, I have a lot of trades. They're sitting down below the records, and there's less there than there were 6 months ago. So everything is shrinking, and every time some shelf space clears, I open up one of the boxes, refill the shelf, and excuse me, hopefully eventually be done with the boxes and just have what's on the shelf.
That's how I view it. That's how I view it. Exactly. But my business model is a little bit different. Yeah. I don't have a bunch of the items that I already sold. So they legitly come in and I don't even take them out of the box. I just slap on a new label. It's amazing. It's amazing. I'm like, boom, new label on, out it goes. It's crazy. And it's even cooler when you ship internationally and you do that.
Okay.
That's just amazing. That's just amazing. There's nothing that gives me more satisfaction. I've sent more packages to Kentucky than anywhere else right now.
Wow.
It's amazing. It's amazing. eBay handles all of it. It's insane. They charge the international shipping. I ship to Kentucky and I'm good to go. And I ship globally. I ship all over the world and I don't care. It's awesome. It's absolutely wonderful. It's like the most amazing thing ever. Like I've shipped to Barcelona, I've shipped to Sweden, I've shipped to Denmark. It's fantastic. But I digress. Enough about me. But where can people find you? Because I've been keeping you long enough.
All right. So they can find me. I have a website, finishlinecomics.com. I do have a web store there. So if you want to trade right now, you don't want to wait for the Kickstarter, you can buy the trade. I have issues 2 through 7 available there. Issue 1 is at the moment sold out. Next print run is coming with this particular Kickstarter. I'm also on Kickstarter. You want the book? That helps me when you back that through Kickstarter. I have all kinds of tiers. You can catch up. You can buy rare. You can get CGC, and that's right now for issues 1 through 8. So all my social media is under Finish Line Comics. So if you search Facebook, Instagram, I want to say Twitter, but X or whatever the hell they call it now. You can find all of the things. Instagram, I like to give sneak peeks of artwork and what's going on. So definitely check out Finish Line Comics on social media and check out the Kickstarter. We have 11 days left and it's funded right now. You're just going to get your stretch goal envelope fattened up. Any pledges I get.
And then I'm just going to keep saying it, and I've been saying it for a while. You need to support indie comics. And the way you do that is you back people on Kickstarters when they have Kickstarters going on. You know, whether you're buying a digital, a physical copy, any amount helps, goes a long way. But even going beyond that, also following people on social media is super efficient as well. Following somebody on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, really helpful. Following people on Instagram, Facebook, if they got a YouTube channel, email lists, all that stuff matters. I don't TikTok. TikTok's a big one. That is also very helpful in a lot of ways as well. So that is extremely helpful. And I can't say that enough, as well as sharing things out on those platforms. Liking it goes a long way, and you never know what is going to be seen by somebody and how it's going to help them and who it's going to reach, and that's a big deal. Furthermore, if they're not running a Kickstarter, web stores are a big thing. So buying something from a web store is another way how to support. It's direct and indirect. So if somebody has a book out there that's on Kickstarter, you don't like the book, but they have another book, there you go. If you buy that other book, you're indirectly supporting them making comics collectively. And so it goes a long way whenever you throw money at a creator, an artist, a writer, a producer, a letterer, a colorist. It goes a long way. And it's a big deal. So that's what I have to say about that. And then as far as I'm concerned, I'm an independent creator. And so obviously the way you can support me is following me on social media at Pop Anime Comics on Twitter, Pop Anime Comics on Instagram, Pop Anime Comics on Facebook, on YouTube. Please subscribe to me on YouTube. It goes a long way. Means a lot to me. I think I need 1,000 subscribers and like 4,000 watch hours to get monetized. So we're getting there. We're getting there slowly. We're getting there. So that's one way how to be supportive, as well as I do it. Buy me a coffee and some other stuff. And you can check out my eBay store. That's the other thing too, is that you can buy books directly from me. And let's just say I might have some limited 25s of some stuff coming out that's a little naughty. Might be a good way to put it. Coming later this week. So they're in my possession, and they're special, and they're a pain in the ass to find. So you better open up your checkbook if you want them. But I digress right there. That's everything that I got going on, and yeah, I'm gonna give you the final word.
All right, please check out my series Immortal Era. It's ongoing. We talked about it earlier. It's going to be going for a long time. It's a big story. So jump in now, try it out. Next month, or actually October, check out my new series Corruptor. And yeah, thank you for checking it out. Just like he said, a quick share, or just click on there, pledge $1, and help creators out, because we want to wake up the Kickstarter algorithm. So anything is always appreciated. And yeah, I hope you enjoy it.
Well, I don't think I could have said that any better myself, everybody. And that is a wrap.